Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are watching us. Welcome back to Willis Resilience Expedition News. It's day 3 of our rolling coverage as teenager Parker Leoto attempts to set a world record trekking across the most inhospitable place on Earth.
And coming up on today's show, we'll be bringing you the latest news from the expedition team out there on the ice. As we reported yesterday, Parker and the team were delayed by the weather, and they've been pushing hard to make it to the start line. Have they caught up? We'll find out.
Also, Colleen, your boss is coming in today. The CEO of the Willis Group, Dominic Casserly, will be with us on the sofa to talk things resilience-based. Are you nervous?
Am I in trouble?
No.
Fingers crossed.
No, you're not, of course. You?
Yeah, I'm
Ever in
looking
trouble?
forward to it. I love talking to Dominic.
Oh, you're such a sucker.
So also we'll be sampling some of the special expedition food the guys are eating out on the ice, and I think we may even be cooking some here in the studio too.
Looks really appetizing. We will show you how this is prepared, and yes, I will be sampling a little bit of it and forcing Colleen to do the same.
Breakfast time. And later in our climate change discussion, we'll be asking why the consensus among climate scientists isn't getting across to the general public.
Perhaps the media are to blame. Why not? It's my fault. But to balance that out, we'll be looking at some of the more creative ways of getting people interested in the hot topic at the heart of the resilience expedition.
Yeah.
Also, we'll be checking up on the science experiments being conducted by Parker, digging into the ice to send snow samples back for analysis by leading climate scientists in Austria and New Zealand.
So we are at our 5th sampling site, about 330 kilometers from the South Pole. What we're looking for is specific proxies that tell us more about how the climate works. So we have 20 samples total, and this will give us a record of at least the last year of deposition of tritium.
How was that? You dressed up.
With brothers?
Sisters and brothers.
No
So here
brothers,
at
yeah,
Willis
but,
Resilience TV, we're following the remarkable story of 19-year-old Parker Leoto as he treks to the South Pole in the name of climate science.
Okay, what would you like me to
Attempt
do?
to set a world record by skiing from the coast of Antarctica to the South Pole in record time. First, let's get an update on where exactly Parker and the team are. Now, when we spoke to Parker and polar guide Doug Stube yesterday, they were high up in the Trans-Antarctic mountain range, halfway through the science leg of the expedition, where they've been taking snow samples from an area that has never been sampled before.
The team, we should tell you, up against it time-wise. They've been pulling 20-hour days and pushing themselves and their custom-built truck to the absolute limit in an effort to catch up on lost time. In fact, we've been told by the guys themselves that the truck is running on spares after the inverter broke down.
What's the inverter?
I don't know. I've been told that you know.
I've been told it's very important. I believe it's the unit that charges the battery.
Ooh.
So it could be critical.
Yeah, that's embarrassing, isn't it? Being told something about a car by a girl.
Yeah.
I need to check myself.
Well, we know that as of midnight last night, the team have traveled 1,100 miles from where they landed on Union Glacier last Friday. Now, they still have 400 miles to go before they reach the end of the science leg of the expedition.
And when that happens, Parker and Doug leave their teammates and the comfort and shelter of the truck to begin the race from coast to pole. In order for it to be a world record, Parker has to complete that journey on skis, remember, tugging 82 kilograms worth of weight behind him, unsupported. So he won't get any help from Doug, who will be traveling alongside him, or the truck. The truck will stay with them, following their every footstep, and give us and you guys live updates.
Right. And speaking of those live updates, we will be looking to speak to the team live via satellite link today to get the latest from them. We also invite you to get in touch with any questions you have for Parker or the team on our Twitter feed at Willis South Pole.
And there's lots of information about the expedition, the science, and its link to resilience on our website, willisresilience.com.
Tell us how this came about.
It was an extraordinary story. Basically, Parker sent out, I think, pretty much a spam email to anyone he could find, saying, I'm going to try and do this extraordinary expedition. Can someone please come up with £85,000 to sponsor me, right? And that's how much he originally said. Let me tell you, the program he's now taken on with our support is much more significant than that.
Give us that figure, will you?
No, I won't. But right, he sent this email out, and I think 99% of people deleted it as it came through, right? But he went to Steve Hearn, our deputy CEO, and Steve looked at it and said, "Well, hang on for a second," as he was about to press the delete button, no doubt. This sounds like an extraordinary story, and it completely aligns with Willis's, managing risk, resilience and risk, and trying to do extraordinary things in the context of a risky environment. And so we just pursued it a bit. Then we got to meet Parker. And then we realized, wow, this is a very special individual who has been through difficult times to get to where he is now and is trying to do something quite extraordinary. And we realized we could then add to the program by supplementing the scientific part that he'd always wanted to do to enrich it. And that, of course, builds on everything we're interested in around climate change, extreme events. So it gradually built. But it began with a mass email to the world with Parker trying to find support.
And just turned out to be a great alignment with Willis.
Great alignment with everything we stand for.
Yeah, it's a fantastic project, and so far so good, I think. We've taken over a corner of the foyer here, in the basement,
Entry level.
bottom level,
Yes, yeah.
ground level of the Willis building in London. But I know you've been travelling around recently to gauge what Willis employees make of what you guys are doing with Parker and this whole TV setup, which is
Well, I just came back from trips to Mumbai, New Zealand and Australia. And I was doing many other things apart from seeing clients and colleagues and markets. But I did see, there I walk into the Mumbai office, and there, in the middle of India, hot day, and there are pictures of icebergs everywhere, right? And so people have got really behind this. I think they see the resonance with what we're trying to do, right? They're excited about both the science and the challenge that Parker's taken on, and see how it links with what we're trying to do. Obviously, when you go to New Zealand, which is one of the major stepping off points to go to Antarctica, it's the other one apart from Chile. So they, of course, are completely excited about it because Antarctica is important to the folks.
And there's going to be labs researching, analysing some of the samples that Parker's taking as well in New Zealand. Right. So yeah, even more reason for them to be excited.
Now, speaking of expeditions, you've been on a bit of a resilience expedition yourself as CEO. The first 12 months as CEO of one of the world's most renowned risk advisors, insurance and reinsurance brokers. What generally does a CEO need to do when he takes the reins of a global firm, and what's been your experience over the past year?
The first year is usually a bit of a mad process, right? Because you do have to do multiple things at once. You first of all have to assess what are the opportunities and challenges facing the company. And you can't do that sitting in an office, sort of staring out the window. You've actually got to go out and meet people, importantly meet a lot of clients, and also meet a lot of other participants, other people we work with, as well as, of course, talking to lots of people in the organization. So by definition, I've been talking to lots of people inside and outside Willis to understand the opportunities and challenges. And then you set a path, and then you start, which we did in the middle of the year, and then you start to communicate and discuss it and move it forward. And so the first half of the year was, if you like, assessing the opportunities and challenges. Middle of the year, here's where we're heading. And then since then, it's been starting that process of getting us on that journey, which is just as, travel-filled. You've got to go and talk to lots and lots of people.
It's an exciting journey. Now, you came to Willis after 30 years with consulting firm McKinsey & Company. And this was an incredible career on the other side, if you will. So how did your past experience, how is that preparing you for this switch, and how is that going to position what you're doing for Willis?
Probably three ways, I would think. First, the difference between McKinsey and Willis is not that extreme, right? Both professional client service organizations trying to solve problems for clients, right? So in slightly different fields, but the same concept there. Secondly, they also are, their only major asset is their people, really, right? And so those two aspects, and encouraging people to be innovative and excited in serving their clients, very similar. Secondly, both global. So I sort of, came to two firms, to a firm which was global, like McKinsey was. And third, I was lucky enough, though I spent most of my time being a consultant advising other companies, I was lucky enough at McKinsey to actually manage bits of McKinsey. So the management part of what I now have to do was quite familiar to me. So I hope the combination of what I do, used to do day to day, solving problems for clients, and my managerial experience and the global experience means that we can have a smooth transition. So far, so good.
And I want to just talk about the business for a moment, because as part of Willis's resilience, if you will, you've said about a strategy, and you've recently announced the formation of 4 new industry practices for which you're creating aligned specialization to build the future of the firm around: financial services, construction, energy, and transportation. Now, these are all issues that we are talking about on this show for the next 4 weeks. So why is Willis making this change, and what can clients expect to see as a result?
We've always had great depth geographically, so we have very strong capabilities in 400 offices around the world, and we've had great product capability, in particular areas, property, casualty, D&O, the whole range of capabilities we have. What we're now adding to that is going to be more and more depth in understanding particular industries, so that we can go into clients and say, we really understand what's going on in your industry, how that product we have needs to be adapted to the specific needs of your industry. Or we can see the new regulation coming down the road, how it's going to affect your risks. Here's what our response will be. And so over time, we will have more than 4. They'll be linked globally, so we'll be able to share ideas around the world. And so a client in Brazil in the financial services industry will gain from our experience in New York in financial services, and vice versa.
How is risk changing? How has it changed over the years? I mean, Willis dates back, I think, 185 years or something.
Yes.
And I believe helped in the insurance of the Titanic.
Yes, we're very proud of that.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of risk maybe doesn't exist in this day and age, but how's that changed over years?
Well, some things have stayed the same. So, there's trade, there's movement of goods, etc. Factories burn down. They used to burn down, 150 years ago. They still do today. What's clearly new is urbanization and population density has increased some of the concentrations of risks you might see. Whatever your political view about climate change is, certainly the impact of extreme weather patterns, right, on a more concentrated economy, right, where more assets are pulled together, can be severe. As far away as Christchurch in New Zealand, where terrible earthquakes, to the east coast of the United States.
Which is why it's so important that you have people like Parker that are able to go on these expeditions
Yes,
and provide
and so the linkage for us of the whole resilience expedition is, more and more research on what is happening to weather patterns, what is happening to our climate. For us is good for the world, but it's also very relevant to us. The more we understand weather patterns, the more we're able to help our clients. Another big change, you asked what's changed in risk over the world, over time, cyber risk.
Right, yeah.
Right, I mean, 40, 50 years ago, the internet didn't really exist. Now, big problem, big issue, right? Great opportunities for the world, but it creates cyber crime, cyber terrorism challenges.
I've just noticed a few employees turning up late for work. We can see directly out onto Lime Street from here. I don't know if you want us to monitor that for you and report back.
My working assumption is they're all coming from client breakfasts, right? They've been meeting with clients.
Very trusting CEO.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure that's what they're doing.
talking of employees, he's not really an employee, but he's someone that you're very much supporting, is Parker, of course, and the team. And stay where you are, because with luck, we can speak to them now and find out how they're getting on, because hopefully they're on the line. Parker, hi, can you hear me? We need just a message to our director. We need open talk back, otherwise I can't hear Parker. How are things going? We've been hearing that there's some problems with the truck. Parker, hello. Just testing this link again. Okay. We did have him for a second. We alluded...
This satellite link is very tricky because, as you know, we're not calling our mom down the street.
You take these things for granted, don't you?
Yeah.
You even get frustrated when you get cut off on your mobile phone when you're talking to someone who's just a mile away. On day one, when we actually established our first connection and we had sound and vision, it was such an exciting time. It was brilliant, and the idea that we were able to access them live when they're on the other side of the world in the most inhospitable place on Earth was quite incredible. Let's give it another go, shall we? Parker, this is Dan in the studio. Can you hear me?
Hi, Dan. How are you?
Yeah, we're good. Thanks, mate. Maybe a few problems with the satellite link, but we'll keep on trying as best we can to keep this a smooth conversation. We were hearing earlier that you guys have had some issues with the truck. What's the latest there?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
We were hearing that you had some problems with the truck. You were using spare parts.
Yeah. So over the course of the last few days, there've been a couple of different issues. I mean, it's all just Antarctica, really. First, our heating unit broke, and we managed to fix that. The power broke, and we had to replace the inverter, which is the machine that converts the engine power to electrical power that we can use to charge electronics. And now there was an issue with the fuel tank, or the fuel pipe in the truck, and we fixed that too.
We have pictures of you. So that is Parker on the left of the screen with the phone to his ear, and standing next to him is a man that you guys know very well. Nathan Hambrook-Skinner, who's communications director, and we'll get a chance to chat to him shortly. So Parker, how has progress been? We know that you've been pushing really hard. How are you feeling because of those demands? Oh, well, just, when you're getting into it, my fault for talking so much, giving the satellite a chance to decide it doesn't want to work. Have you seen Gravity, the movie? Yeah. Maybe, there's been something up there with satellites happening.
Indeed, possibly.
But this is, despite the fact that it is intermittent, that connection, it's wonderful, isn't it? And
it comes back, I think.
So every time I come and speak to you, Dominic, he comes back. Parker, are you there?
I am here, yeah. Sorry about that.
No, it's not your fault, mate. Well, unless you hung up on us. We'll try and keep the questions more interesting.
Yeah, we were talking about the truck.
Yeah, well, no, I
we just managed to fix most of the issues, but at the moment, most things are going well with the truck. It's pretty incredible machine.
Parker, it's Dominic Casserly here. Just great to hear that you're moving along, and I know all the 17,000 people at Willis are really excited to follow your progress. And overall, what I hear is you're having some problems along the way, but you're still roughly on track. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much, Dominic. It's great to hear your voice. Yeah, no, these problems are all to be expected. There's nothing's ever going to go 100% smoothly, but at the moment, we've done, with the exception of some delays and a couple of minor issues with the truck, we're really on track, and we're going to push to get to Leverett within the next 2-3 days, I think, or 3 days probably.
Now, that's excellent to hear. That's excellent to hear. And is Nathan, Willis' colleague, is he behaving?
Nathan's actually standing half a foot away from me, and he's been doing really great. He's been helping on all fronts with the communications and with the science as well, and we're really lucky to have him here.
Good. Well, we're all obviously hugely proud of you, but we're also very proud of Nathan supporting you in this process. So that's terrific.
But maybe we can we speak to Nathan? Are you able to pass him the phone? We've got pictures back, by the way, so we can see you standing next to him. Is that possible, Parker?
Yeah. Of course. I'll pass you to Nathan right now.
All right, thanks, mate. We'll speak to you soon.
Thank you. Hi, Dominic.
Now, Nathan, is that a moustache we're seeing? I mean, really, Nathan, is that what we're seeing, mate?
Sorry, say again. I couldn't catch that. Can you say that again?
Do we see a moustache emerging?
Yeah, just about. It's a fairly thin moustache and a small goatee. I can't manage the full beard. It's quite embarrassing, actually, because he's got a massive beard.
Okay, so there's one condition, Nathan. You are not shaving that off before you get back to the office. I think we have to see it live, okay?
Sorry, Dominic, you'll have to say that again. It's breaking up.
Oh.
Okay, no shaving of the beard or moustache before you get back to the office.
Yeah, I'll make sure it's gone by the time I get back to.
No. We've got to see the real thing.
There's got to be something in it for him.
Yeah.
We'll try and engineer a pay rise for you or something, Nathan.
Yep, supply of razors. There we go.
Nathan, what's the experience been like for you thus far?
Sorry, it's a really bad connection.
No,
Can you just ask the question?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we need to be really patient with this. But again, it's just amazing that we have any kind of contact with you. What's the experience been like for you thus far?
It's been absolutely incredible. I mean, it's a totally new experience for me. Obviously, I've never been anywhere like this before in my life. I mean, I guess the closest thing that I could compare it to is maybe a desert in North Africa or the Middle East. I mean, I think icy desert is maybe one of the best ways to describe it. We've just been driving now for 4 or 5 days through just nothingness really, and but it's strangely beautiful and inspiring and really sort of rousing as well. Yeah, we've gone through some pretty tricky terrain, and Ao, our driver, has just done an outstanding job. Pulling sort of 22-hour days at the wheel and navigating sort of a safe course with Doug, also who's helping to navigate, through some really difficult terrain. So I'm learning a lot from the team, learning a lot from Parker. His integrity around the science is really impressive, and it's again inspiring to see that. So I'm having the time of my life, actually. Yeah, it's absolutely amazing.
Nathan, it's Colleen.
Hi, Colleen, how are you?
Hi, we've been reading your blog, and you've been doing a wonderful job of kind of storytelling of this experience. Can you share with our audience a little bit about why there's so much pressure to make up time and get to that start for the race?
Yeah, sure. So it was a bit frustrating, our delay in Punta. We were hanging around a little bit. I mean, we felt that we got organised quite quickly, and then we had sort of 3 or 4 days where we were doing a lot of hanging around. So we're just trying to catch up on that delay and put ourselves in the best possible position, or put Parker and Doug in the best possible position to make it to the pole, back to the pole, as quickly as possible. So, I mean, it's pressure that we're putting on ourselves, but it's because we want to.
We had a good run at it then, didn't we? We, sounds like, have lost audio. We've still got some vision. I don't know if Nathan can still hear us. He's looking at the phone, pointing at something, saying, why is this blooming thing not working? We check this time and time again. Parker, it's your fault, mate, and they're going to come to fisticuffs any second now. Nathan, have you got us back? Hi.
Great.
I tell you what, we'll wrap this up in a...
Asking that question.
Yeah, we'll wrap this up in a second. I just want to ask you what the toughest thing has been. The guys around you are hugely experienced at this. You're fairly new to it, although I'm pretty sure you're in shape. What's been the toughest physical and mental aspect so far?
I suppose for me, the toughest thing has been sort of not feeling like a spare part and trying to get as involved as I possibly can, and trying to do the best job that I can, really. Yeah, like you say, I'm not experienced as everyone else in the team, and it gets a bit annoying if I kind of make a mistake or don't do something quite right. So I got a bit of a telling off yesterday for not looking after one of our stoves as well as I should have been, and you know, I felt sort of quite down about that, and yeah, so it's things like that really, not being trying to make sure that I'm contributing as much as possible, I suppose.
Great. Well, Nathan, we're sure you are, and we give you and Parker best luck going forward. Okay.
Thanks very much, Dominic.
Great.
Cheers, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Nathan. Give our regards to the other guys as well, parts of the team. And once again, we will always, each day here on Willis Resilience TV, cross live to the guys, and hopefully that connection will improve each time. But it's just wonderful, isn't
Exciting.
it, to get
Exciting
any
to
kind
hear
of
from them and see them.
communication with them. Yeah, and that's the embodiment of resilience, isn't it? Which is how that all ties into the core message from the company. Thank you very much indeed, Dominic. Great to see you. You've got to go and do a full day's work now.
Yeah. We'll catch up with all those guys who are having those breakfast client meetings.
Yes, the ones.
Yeah.
There are still a couple just sliding in now. It's all right. We're across
It's a
this.
longer client meeting.
Okay.
What can you do? Okay. Thanks very much.
No, it's good to see you. Maybe we'll see you again before our time is done here. Coming up in a moment, we'll be discussing the role of the media when it comes to the climate change debate. We'll see you in a second.
So we are at our 5th sampling site, about 330 kilometers from the South Pole. Up until now, between the coast and the pole, we've been doing regular cores, shallow cores about 2 meters deep, and they've been getting shallower and shallower as we approach the South Pole because we want to get finer and finer resolution in our analysis of past climates. And what we're looking for is specific proxies that tell us more about how the climate works. So right now, today we just did a pretty shallow snow pit, which is easier than doing a core when it's this shallow. It's only around 2.5 feet deep, but we took samples at every 3.5 centimeters. So we have 20 samples total, and this will give us a record of at least the last year of deposition of tritium in Antarctica. So we have about 5 more to go before we reach the Leverett Glacier, but everything's been going well so far. It's all going according to plan, and our next one will be at the South Pole.
Hey, what's that up ahead?
That's our fuel. We have 2 barrels there, 400 liters.
And we're officially halfway
Yeah,
to the pole, that is.
yeah. So now we have to refuel, do some science,
Get back on the road.
get back on the road. Now we're refueling.
Good.
And the car's not made for jet fuel. We're using jet fuel on the car now when we're here, and we have to mix it with a 2-stroke oil. So we add 1 liter to 200 liters of jet fuel.
It's great to see Parker in action and hear from him on the ice, and of course it's really nice to get a better understanding of the science that Parker is doing out there. And part of Parker's mission is to raise awareness about climate change and really just get people talking about this.
Especially the younger generations. Some of the information we get about global warming can really be contradictory, and that's why we've invited 2 guests into the studio to discuss whether the message about climate change is being lost in translation, perhaps.
And are the media the ones to blame? That's one of the questions being asked.
So please welcome Connie St. Louis, Director of Science Journalism at City University London, and David Buckland, founder of Cape Farewell. It's an organisation that brings artists and scientists together to engage the public in a cultural response to climate change. Actually, talk more a little bit about that and how it came to being, David. Welcome to you both. It's good to see you.
It's about 14 years ago, but I came at this from the arts, and I was working with the oceanographers, the climate scientists at the time, and they were going, why is nobody listening to us? And I was going, well, you know, sometimes the language you use is really difficult to comprehend. You know, they say 2 degrees rise in temperature, 6 degrees rise in temperature, you know, these big kind of abstract concepts, which to them are seriously important, but to the public are going, well, I don't understand that. So I think by embedding the artists over the many years in the Arctic with these scientists, so the artists get a very good knowledge of what climate change is. They're not just coming at it from the blue. You know, these are really well-informed artists. And then they find a way of narrating the story. But what they do is they sort of take these big overall concepts and make them human scale. So they say, look, this is my personal reaction to it.
And you're one of the artists that has
I'm
been
one
to
of the artists and been many times.
So you've been to the Arctic? Have you done the Antarctic yet?
No, my bag's in the Arctic.
Too tough down there, is it?
Oh no, it's tough up there.
Yeah, I bet it is.
It's melting faster up north, unfortunately.
Now, Connie, you're actually training young journalists, the journalists of the future. How do you see their approach to climate change? Do you hear them taking an interest in this? How do you see the reporting from your view?
Half of the students that come on my course are really interested in reporting the environment, because I think they haven't quite understood what has gone on in the last 10 years while we've been talking about climate change. They're passionate about the environment and they want to learn how to report it right. And so we look at all various kinds of things about the role of the scientists, the role of the public, and of course the really important role of the science journalists in the middle of it. And they're fascinated, and I think it makes a huge amount of difference to when they go and hopefully get jobs and become jobbing journalists.
What do you think the problem is? It may be twofold, threefold,
Yeah.
so on and so forth. But I mean, perhaps scientists aren't particularly good at communicating.
I think scientists are actually getting better at communicating. There's been a big thrust by government to get scientists to communicate. I think what has happened, I think there have been two things. One of them is partly in the process of translation, as you described it earlier. The media has cast a scientist against a skeptic. And the problem with that is that the science is absolutely certain. We know there is climate change. That's it, full stop. But still we have very powerful companies who have a lot of money, who can turn around and say to a lot of the media, actually, no, the science isn't certain. And I think there have been two events. I think the premier one was around the leak of the emails from the University of East Anglia. You may remember that a few years ago. Professor Jones, Climategate, as we call it in the media. And the media was so focused on the conference in Copenhagen that it kind of took its eye off the fact that all these emails were leaking out. Now, you asked the journalists about it, and they said, well, we knew it was happening, and we knew it was unsubstantial. And later on, inquiries went on and found that it was insubstantial and there was no fault on the part of the scientists. But the problem is that there's a huge vacuum when the skeptics could communicate straight to the public, and it was unmediated. So the skeptics stole the moment. And I think that kind of has led to this massive public lack of trust and lack of engagement, because they don't know who to believe. So I think that's been one of the main problems. And the second one has been around balance. So if you have Nigel Lawson arguing with, a leading climate change scientist, he is such a big fella in society and in politics that it becomes quite difficult for some of the journalists to challenge it. In fact, I was talking to a journalist the other day who said, I wouldn't argue with Lord Lawson if he tells me something. And I think, well, you do need to argue with Lord Lawson, because somehow you have to make sure that the science and the public understand that it's the gospel sort of thing.
So speaking of the skeptics and the balance, what is that balance, and how much airtime should we give to each side?
Okay, so we need to avoid the false balance, the one-on-one thing. And I think we need to stop the discussions of whether or not the science is right, because it's undeniable. I think the interesting things come now in talking about how we're going to deal with it. And I think occasionally it's okay to talk to people who have contrary views about how we should deal with it. I don't know if they should be termed skeptics, but I think everybody that I talk to has a different solution to climate change, and I think we need to hear some of those views. I think we also need to understand how political this is now. We've just seen the last IPCC report come out. This is political. What countries do about it is a political solution.
Dave, let me ask you this, and it's a question about freedom, something which artists crave and champion. Should the skeptics, with a similar argument, be heard in this particular debate?
I don't know, I get angry because when you get 98% of the scientists, it's an absolute fact, climate change. So why give any airtime? You know, it's like saying, oh, gravity doesn't exist, oh, the world's flat. Should I get a skeptic in to say, argue that the world's round? No, we've gone past that argument. Now we've got to do exactly the same. We've gone past it. Climate is a total reality. There are no, you know, when they say skeptics, you get the BBC going, blogger. Well, I mean, sorry, that's not an informed person. But you know, just move on and go to solutions.
Right.
I mean, that's where we're at now. It's like, what can we do about it? And there's so much being done and so much to get excited about. And that's what really frustrates me.
We've got some pictures, actually, that we can refer to. This is some of the art that you've been talking about that's been taken in the areas of interest.
This one's nice. An architect did this, Sinan Prasad, one of our greatest architects. And that kind of volume of air represented by those balloons is actually 1 ton of carbon dioxide. So you kind of imagine, you know, each of us are putting out, what, 10, 20 tons every year. But, you know, 90,000 tons of carbon dioxide goes into the atmosphere every day. 90,000 tons of that kind of cube of air. So you kind of go, whoa, you know, this is serious.
And this one quickly.
And this glacier, I mean, there was that and another glacier next door. We revisit, you go back 5 years, 6 years to the same place. And you get there and the glacier is no longer there. And you think, it is changing that quick in that amount of time.
Connie, is this something that you could see as a way to bring in, even into your courses, as a way to sort of open up, although I guess maybe those that come on your course aren't the ones that you need to actually preach to. But you know what I mean? Is there a different way, such as David's here, that we could try and generate a little bit more talk amongst the generations?
I think one of the things that's really important is to try and work out why psychologically the public isn't engaging with it. I think David's initiative is fabulous, and I love the fact that it's with young people because, you know, it is going to be their world. But I think if we could work out why they're not engaging with this and how we can not preach to them, but get them to start thinking, I've got to take this into my own hands. And I think that's a little bit of psychology, actually. I think that's quite important because, yeah, most people understand it's happening, but why doesn't their behaviour change? I think that's really critical.
And do you think that young people actually care? I mean, Parker seems quite unique in that respect, that he's on a mission to raise awareness and begin this dialogue. But when you look at the younger generation, maybe globally, you know, are enough people talking about this?
I think young people are very switched off by politics at the moment, and I don't think they realise how much of a political debate the climate has become. I'm hoping that initiatives like this one will help people young people to start to seize their initiative. I think it could become very powerful if young people started to really vote and to engage with politics in a way that was really powerful. I think it could change things.
It's impossible. Sorry, go on, David.
No, I mean, in a way, you need a vision thing. I mean, this is what the arts do. And if you give the young people saying, well, actually, look, here are the solutions. This is what people are doing. Here's the new technology. Here's the new clean tech companies. They're burgeoning. They're making profit. They're what people want to do. It's the work you want to do. And this is the solution. So you've got to sort of say, instead of saying, oh, no, it's all going to be gloom and doom, which we've been backed into saying by the skeptics, by the invested interest groups, and saying, well, actually, no, the future is cleaner, is brighter, it's a lot of employment, the world will keep turning, the economy will keep working, and it's just a better place to go to.
We're adapting.
And I think it is a vision thing, you know, it's like, let's get excited by the future instead of being fearful of it. And I think that's what we're trying to say. And a lot of our work now is we've moved you know, we made a decision 6 years ago. We're not talking about climate change anymore. It's a given fact. Let's look at where the future is and where the solutions are.
And so I think your organization is so interesting and so unique. Can you tell us about some of the Cape Farewell projects that are giving artists a platform for expressing themselves on this topic?
We've been many times. We've been 9 times. Well, actually, we've been 12 times into the Arctic. Twice with groups of young people, and we do it on a beautiful old sailing boat. But the groups of young people, 18-year-old and under, were sailing the boat themselves. They were the ones negotiating in the Arctic and taking hands and talking to and working with the scientists. Fabulous. They get engaged, and in the same way as Parker, but this was with a whole team of youngsters. But now we've just got a festival in Toronto, which is, you know, North American. It's a 4-month climate festival. Basically, you know, climate is culture. This isn't always about the science anymore. This is about the way we live our lives. It's about our complex cultures. So the whole 4-month festival was inspired not just by having the scientists inform the artists, but actually, you know, where's the new economy? Where's the new social sciences? How are they impacting? How's the eco-theologians? You know, there's a whole group of people called eco-theologians. So those informers then inform the artists, who then picked this up and then made artworks, which we then, you know, we have major exhibitions, we have films, you know, we have ways of getting it out into the public.
Well, I mean, that all sounds sexy, and I mean, I love the idea of that. But Connie, you're right. But Connie, I want to come back to that point that you made about the politicians, the involvement in politicians, and perhaps that is where maybe some of the turn-off is. It's impossible not to politicise this in some way, shape, or form, because it is going to be policy change and legislation which is going to push change forward. So how can you overcome that?
Wow.
And because I mean, you can't grab hold of the politicians and say, you know what, come to my classmate and find a way to do this better.
I do think that young people have a social media that should be able to overcome some of that obstinacy by politicians to seize this. And I do see things like change.org and other lobbying for platforms that can start to make a difference. I think young people have got to get it. And I think young people have got to, in a sense, mobilise around this idea. I think that'll be terribly powerful. If there's a pile of young people saying to David Cameron, this is what we want with wind farms, then there's no vacillation. He will start to realise this is his electorate. And I would like them to take up their power, in a sense. They haven't really stepped into the power as an electorate yet. And I think once they start doing that, then I think we'll be able to move forward.
I'm just wondering, and maybe you can both comment on this quickly, because we are living in a world that is dominated, especially with the younger generations, by celebrity. You know, whether there are some well-known faces. I'm kind of thinking of people like George Clooney, who's done a lot of great work in Darfur. You know, whether that's something that could be explored more.
The number of people who want to step up, I mean, not just the superstars, but the really well-known people that inform us. The great writers, Ian McEwan writes a whole book about it, inspired by us. You know, there are so many people who want to step up and take this seriously. Maybe that's the way you drive the political, you know, you're trying to change the zeitgeist.
Yes.
And that somebody says, you know, I'm not going to vote for the Green Party, but if somebody doesn't have a coherent climate policy, I'm not voting for them. And you know, Cameron very famously said, the greenest government ever. Well, you know, we're a little bit worried about that right now. But, you know, that said, there is legislation in place right now that we have to deliver by 2020. So it is beginning to happen.
Yeah, and what about internationally? I mean, you're speaking about politicians here in the UK. Internationally, is there a more global movement to have a cohesive approach to global legislation that might
it's going to be down to
trigger
legislation.
change?
I mean, the change is going to come about. If it's driven, it has to come from the United States and Canada and China. And there is already, you know, Obama, I'm sure, would love to put legislation in place. And China moves in mysterious ways, but is actually already making real efforts to try and change around its carbon footprint.
And Colin, I guess you explore the global side of things in studies too.
We look at what's happening and how to change it. I think to come back to your comment about leaders, perhaps not George Clooney, he's over 50. Young people don't care about people who are over 50, and I speak as an over 50-year-old. I think tiny temper and those kind of people, they need to take up the mission statement, you know. we care about.
In case in case you're not aware of Tiny Tempo, he is essentially he's the usher, isn't he, of the UK music. Now this could descend into fast now, but we're going to be talking a little bit later about the food that they are eating in Antarctica, and we actually have a sample here.
Now I liken this to something that the astronauts might eat.
Right. So I'm going to have to eat this a little bit later on. So I'm going to try and prepare it now.
This is
talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah, this is
this is an all-day breakfast, apparently. This you're familiar with. You can check that I'm doing this right, then, David.
You've done this on the North Pole.
Okay.
The cooking part is easy. It's the eating bit that's hard.
Actually, waking up and saying you want to eat is the hard part.
Is it?
All right. So there is going to be a chemical reaction, I'm told, because this water that I'm trying to open is going to react with a packet that's already in there, create heat, and cook the food that way.
So, don't spill the water.
Don't try this at home, although it is perfectly safe. They wouldn't allow me to do anything difficult or risky in here. Right.
Now let the magic happen.
Do you have to shake it or
Let it cook.
But I've got to fold it.
You actually want to eat this. That's the difficult.
Well, no,
I think you just set it aside.
This at all. This is all in the name of science. You know, Parker's doing his bit. There you go.
Breakfast in 10 minutes. There we go.
See. Well, seriously, I'm going to try and eat it. You lot can stick around and see what it's like. Oh, I can feel it heating up. There you go. Oh, and it's expanding. Oh, my stars. That's why... all right, I'll tell you. Right, we've got to move in. Thanks very much indeed for coming in and talking to us.
Thank you for being here. Very interesting, both of you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
OK, let's get to some of the latest images that have been sent back from the team in Antarctica. Looks gorgeous out there, doesn't it?
You have just prepared
a
ready-made meal.
This is, as far as I know, a worldwide first. So this is genuinely the kind of food that the guys are eating to survive in Antarctica.
Right. Of course, nutrition and calories are very important for this expedition, and the way that they are achieving that is through these...
Do you know how many calories they're burning a day, roughly?
I believe it's 6,000.
Yeah, I was hoping I had one on you there, but you knew that. Right, here we go. Ready? Yeah, that's great.
I'm going to try...
Nice. Well, it's actually all right. It's an all-day breakfast. We've got some baked beans, vegetarian sausages. Do you want a bit of the sausage?
No, thank you. I'll stick with the beans. Very tasty.
I'm going to go in for a banger.
Banger and mash. Could you live on that? Could you live on that for 6 weeks?
You know what? I think I probably have at some stage in my life. I was a student.
College.
Yeah, I was a student. I was living on about £10.50 a week. That is amazing. I honestly thought it was going to be bordering on inedible.
Yeah.
But it isn't. This is actually quite tasty. I know you're not eating an awful lot of it, but maybe that's because you had a large breakfast that we all laughed at this morning.
Yeah.
It's
not bad. It's not bad. I mean, I think that I think it's amazing technology that they are able to have this compact fuel.
I mean, that heating system, I don't know what the science is, but there was a pack in there, and just adding that water created a reaction, and it expanded and heated it really quickly.
This might be the answer for me, given that I don't spend much time in the kitchen. I might be turning to ready packs.
How much? I'm going to ask the producer. How much did this cost? Did you go out and buy it? This This was part of a pack that we were going to give to journalists. We don't know how expensive it is, but I'm assuming that this is actually quite expensive and maybe not cost effective, especially in this day and age, Colleen. So you would have to stick to your shredded wheat in the morning. You know what that is?
Yes, I do.
Do you have that?
Yes.
Sorry, you have that stateside.
Well, we really mustn't complain about this Arctic food because, in actual fact, global food supplies are running low, and with a growing world population heading towards 9 billion, it's a risk that the world cannot afford to ignore.
Yeah, we're wasting, would you believe, 1.3 billion tonnes of food every year. We sent our reporter Ash to find out why.
Our relationship with food has changed beyond recognition. No longer is it tasteless gravy and Arctic rolls. Now it's all about organic veg, street food and watching TV chefs. But food poverty is still a problem in the UK. And this winter, thousands of people will have to choose between heating and eating. The scandal in all of this is that each year we throw away over 15 million tonnes worth of food. That's enough to fill 18 Wembley stadiums. The question is, why are we throwing away so much food? And what can we do about it? Tristram Stewart of Feeding the 5000 has been campaigning to see food waste reused. I went down to the Pig Idea at Trafalgar Square to find out more.
At the moment, when we buy sausages and bacon in Europe, unfortunately, we are contributing to some of the world's most severe global problems, including deforestation and world hunger, because we're feeding pigs food that people could eat, and we're feeding them imported soy from South America, where, of course, the forests are being chopped down to grow that soy. But there is a very delicious and a very traditional solution to that, and that is to use food waste to feed our pigs instead. As an organisation, our first priority is to reduce food waste in the first place, and that remains the case. But where food waste arises, if it's fit for livestock consumption, if the law allows it, that's what we should be doing with it.
Great! So we have a free food recycling system that's also rather tasty. But why is this food being wasted in the first place? Celebrity chef and food campaigner Hugh Fearnley-Whittingstall to explain.
What you're doing is you're creating a new flavour. At every stage that food is handled, in the way things work today, some of it gets wasted. You know, of course, you have to go back a while, and that never used to happen. Food was too precious. So you've got supermarkets who, perhaps being very particular about the size and shape of the fruit that they're putting in their stores, so they're rejecting stuff because it doesn't meet their cosmetic standards. You've got farmers perhaps who are not able to harvest all their crops because of the way that the price doesn't reach the right height for it to even be worth harvesting for them, so the crop goes to waste. And of course you've got all of us at home who don't necessarily shop as skillfully as we might, or get overexcited by some of the marketing deals on offer in the supermarket or wherever we do our shopping, and then the food gets wasted in our fridge.
Unfortunately, I think I might be one of those overexcitable, unskillful shoppers that Hugh warned me of. So I've just got back from shopping and I need to put my food away. But opening up the fridge, I can already see some fish that's over a week old, so I know that's going to have to go in the bin. There's a couple of bits of salad in here that's starting to look a bit rotten and smell a bit funky, so they're going to have to go in the bin too. And as for what I bought this week, well, I've got some curly kale. Now, I've never managed to finish a bag of curly kale in my life. This is the smallest bag that I could find at the shop, and I know that at least some of that's going to get chucked away. And cucumbers. I never managed to get more than halfway through a cucumber before the rest starts to go a bit rotten, so I know that at least some of that is also going to go in the bin. The thing is, I'm typical of a British consumer. In fact, as a nation, we throw away £60 per household per month of usable food. And 10% of all our greenhouse gas emissions come from the production of food that never gets eaten. In the United States, that figure is £75 a month, whilst in sub-Saharan Africa, it's a mere £4. But what about the retailers we buy from? Don't they have a part to play? Alice Ellison of the British Retail Consortium explains their role.
Retailers are, they accept that there is a responsibility around food waste, and they accept that they are, as I said before, at the heart of the supply chain. But also, they want to provide value to their customers. So not only in, value for money, but also providing customers what they want. So they won't want to oversell to customers if customers are going to throw the food away, because the customer won't value that.
So when it comes down to it, retailers are just giving us good value and what we want. They can't tell us what to buy. But Vicky Hurd of Friends of the Earth disagrees.
If retailers couldn't influence our buying, I'll eat my hat. They are brilliant, absolutely brilliant at influencing what we buy. We never asked for star fruit, but we've got star fruit. Yeah. So let's not be silly about this. We really need retailers to take action.
And what about all those promotions and 2-for-1s? Aren't they tricking us into buying more than we need?
There was research carried out around promotions, and it found that actually most promotions are reduced to clear or price reductions rather than buy one, get one free. But actually when those customers are asked had they bought food on a buy one, get one free promotion, of those that said they had, only 4% said they ended up throwing it away.
According to the UN, we are going to have to double world food production by 2050. So we can't afford to waste any food that we do produce. Feeding the 5,000 are already finding fantastic ways to reuse food waste. The big goal is to reduce food waste in the first place.
Well, joining us in the studio now to discuss the issue of food waste, we have Nikki Harlan-Popoulou, spokesperson for the Feeding the 5,000 campaign, Richard Swanell, Director of Sustainable Food Systems at RAP, which is a government anti-waste campaign. Welcome to you too. And Alice Ellison of the British Retail Consortium, advising the big supermarkets on waste policy. So we might have some difficult questions for you to manoeuvre around, Alice, at some point. Let's talk about the amount of waste that we are producing globally and the kind of figures that are being bandied around. How accurate are they and how bad a situation is it? Nikki, let's start with you.
Well, the headline figure is that we waste about a third of the food that we produce globally. That's 1.3 billion tons of food. If we look at the global level, that is the official statistic. In developing countries, this is because of problems related to lack of basic infrastructure like refrigeration, pasteurization and transport. So it means that a lot of food is lost even before it leaves the farm. Whereas in Western countries, we're looking at more like 50% of the food that is grown being wasted. So the problem there is very different. It's more related to a culture of abundance. We don't value food in the same way that our parents' and grandparents' generations did. And back when it was considered a crime to waste food because it was too valuable.
Yeah, I remember being told you've got to finish that on your plate. I mean, that is an extraordinary figure, up to 50% in the Western part of the world being wasted, Richard.
Well, I think that's the total of the total amount of food that is wasted. Around 50% comes from the supply chain, and the 50% in the home, I think, is the statistic there. I mean, if you just take it in, we said 1.3 billion around the world. That's 1 in 4 of the calories that's produced for human consumption is wasted. That gives you the whole idea. And just to give you another statistic in terms of the environmental implication, 70% of all water use is used in irrigation to produce food. And if we're wasting a third of that, that's an extraordinary amount of that's water, that's carbon, all those materials going into it. So this is a serious issue. And if we are going to feed a growing population going forward, we've got to tackle food waste.
Now, I'm sure there's the culprits and the problem is generated from a variety of sources, but supermarkets obviously are one of the sources that we're talking about today. And so, Alice, I want to bring you in. How serious of a problem is it for supermarkets? How are supermarkets taking this seriously? How are they attacking this problem? I mean, Tesco, they reported some statistics that 68% of all bagged salads, 47% of all bagged goods, and 40% of apples are wasted. So those are some pretty high figures as well. What are supermarkets doing to tackle this?
Supermarkets are taking this issue very, very seriously. The actual waste that comes from supermarkets is very small. So the 15 million tonnes of waste that's produced in the UK each year from food, about 0.4 million tonnes is actually from supermarkets. But supermarkets are at the heart of the supply chain, so they can influence both their supply chain and the consumer. So they've signed up to a number of commitments with the UK government and RAP to tackle food waste, and they've signed up to targets on household food waste and also reducing food waste in the supply chain. They've undertaken a number of initiatives in their supply chain and with customers at home. For example, they're part of the WRAP's Love Food, Hate Waste campaign, which they've adapted in their own way to influence customers in reducing waste. And they've also changed the way that they sell products, so they'll sell smaller portions, and they've adapted some of their promotions as well.
And did they come kicking and screaming with their arms behind their backs, Richard?
Well, I think one of the interesting things is that the whole debate around food waste, Dan, has changed. There was a time, I think, when people were saying, almost saying, is this actually happening? You know, the first thing we did was deny we actually wasted food. We've got past that. Now we've got lots of people working together to actually address this. So, you know, WRAP working through Love Food Hate Waste campaign with consumers, helping them reduce food waste in the home, the retailers and the supply chain also beginning to throw their weight, helping consumers and also tackling food waste in the supply chain. And indeed, we've also got an agreement with the hospitality sector to look at reducing waste in hospitality as well. So you're now beginning to see a complete movement towards actually reducing food waste. People are beginning to tackle this.
We're not seeing the benefits yet, presumably, Nikki.
Well, there has certainly been a change in the way we talk about food waste. So far, most of the emphasis has been put on how much food is wasted at home. WRAP has produced very rigorous research on what is wasted at home with forensic detail, so we know exactly what sort of products are wasted. But we need more transparency in terms of how much food is wasted further up the supply chain. So retailers are starting to take responsibility of the role they play in food waste across their supply chains. But we need more. We need to push the industry further. WRAP has been doing great work with the retailers as part of the
You're not saying that just because Richard's here, are you?
Well, I mean, we have seen tangible results recently. It's 7.4% reduction in the in industry food waste. However, comparing that to the ambitions in other European countries, in Holland we have 20% targets for 2016. In Norway, 26%. So you know, there's clearly more things that retailers can do to reduce their food waste. Working with their suppliers to use more of the food that is being produced for them, so not rejecting wonky fruit and vegetables for overly fussy cosmetic standards, redistributing food surplus to charities in need, and also feeding food waste to pigs, as we saw. You know, our new campaign, The Pig Idea, is promoting the practice of feeding food that's not fit for human consumption to livestock.
There's a big movement, and we've recognized that there's a problem, and so now it would be nice to talk about some of the solutions that people are taking, some of the steps people are taking to alleviate this. I know there's a big push in the States to recycle some of the food from groceries to nonprofit organizations and homeless people, etc. What kind of interesting solutions are you seeing, and what can the average consumer do to help with this?
Well, there's quite a lot I think consumers can do, and what's interesting is that's already beginning to happen. So when we started in this space, there was about 5.3 million tonnes of avoidable food waste in the home. That's now come down to 4.2. 1.1 million tonnes less. That's a 21% reduction. So consumers are already taking steps. And the sort of things they're doing is planning before we go shopping. And then actually storing things better, because actually if you put apples in the fridge, for example, they last up to 2 weeks longer, nice and fresh, than before. And then actually also using our leftovers then. If we cook a little bit too much, having the confidence to use our leftovers, and here the freezer is your friend, using the freezer to help you balance it out. There's lots of great hints and tips on lovefoodhatewaste.com to help you with that.
Nice plug.
Exactly.
Expertly done. Yeah. You're a pro. Is it the perishable goods that are the main problem?
Well, perishable is a key part. So the top three that's wasted in the home are bread, milk, and potatoes. So all of them. I mean, then the key thing here is obviously it's about volume of sales. You know, that we buy an awful lot of those, but also they're relatively perishable. So it's those areas we're working. But just to give you an idea, 37 million slices of bread were wasted in 2007. That's down to 24 million now. So we're really making some progress.
I don't know if this is completely the wrong direction to go here, but for instance, if the supermarkets offered smaller loaves of bread, for instance, and therefore hopefully you would find, you know, less waste product, would that affect them in any way, shape or form? Would they gain profit in some way?
I Well, that's already happening. So under some of the agreements that retailers and manufacturers have signed with WRAP, they're already making smaller portions, as you say, bread, baked beans, for example, salad bags. Right. And retailers want to offer their customers value, and customers will not feel they're being offered value if they're wasting the food that they buy. So, for example, one retailer is now offering with bag salad, buy one, eat one later. Right. So there'll be different stages of ripeness.
Are they doing that to help on food wastage, or are they doing that to try and steal a march on their competitors? And this is a hugely competitive market.
Yes, well, yes, it is. But yes, it's about offering value. So if they can offer value through reducing food waste at home, then that...
Right.
That's one way to do it.
It's that way round, is it, as opposed to having the wastage as the core message?
No, wastage is the core message, but I think they are hand in hand.
So, Alice, you're talking about a reduction, which sounds like a good benefit, but these numbers are still pretty staggering. I mean, 68% of all bagged salad tossed, absolutely rotten, unusable.
Yes, that's from one supermarket, and it is, as you said, the fresh products and the bagged products, which are most vulnerable to being thrown away. And retailers, a number of major supermarkets don't offer, for example, buy one, get one free promotions on bagged salads anymore. They're also improving storage advice, and they're also looking at innovating packaging. So, for example, potatoes now are in special bags, which means they stay fresher for longer. There's special strips inside strawberries. There's freezing advice. Also, they've changed lots of labelling, so things like display until have been removed, and sell by, because that's confusing for customers. And also removing use by as much as possible, saying best before, and then educating people on what that means as well.
It's a real shift of the mindset.
Yes.
Richard is nodding in agreement. I won't come to you just now. Nikki, though, I mean, how big a problem are the supermarkets and the wastage, despite what we've heard here?
Well, I mean, you talked about the solutions, and we talked a lot about consumers and in-store or back-of-store waste, but we need to recognize that this is only part of the picture. So a lot of food is being wasted across the supply chain before food is reaching the shelves and the consumers. There's a lot that we can do at home, but one of the most important things that we can do as consumers is to tell the businesses that provide us with our food that we want them to stop wasting food, and we want them to take more radical action towards the solutions. One of the first things that need to happen in order to find the solutions to food waste is more transparency. So at the moment, no food retailer is obliged by law to report how much food they're wasting publicly. And there isn't any detail in terms of how much food is wasted exactly in the supply chain. So if we don't know where food is wasted, in what quantities, in what state it is in, the governments, the social innovators cannot find the solutions and quickly move to solve the problem.
Is that something that you would take on board, feedback to the retailers? Is there a dialogue between these two parties?
Absolutely. I mean, Tesco recently, as you mentioned, published their food waste data. The important thing about that was that it included more details in terms of how much food was wasted, also to a certain extent in their suppliers. And they took a step towards taking responsibility for the food that was wasted in their supply chain. However, we need more granular data, we need more transparency, and we need all the retailers to take this step forward and openly publish their data. And that is important because once that is out in the public, retailers will start competing against each other to show who is wasting less. And that is the key to making a significant change.
So let's talk about the impact for a minute, though. But what does the meaning of food waste, what does that mean in the context of climate change and global warming? How is that influencing or impacting the broader?
Well, it's a significant issue. I mean, as we've already said, I think what's interesting is that you need to use fossil fuels, you need to use water, you need to use nutrients to grow all the food that we're producing. And clearly, if we're wasting globally a third of that, all of those resources have actually been wasted. So just to put that into perspective, the food wasted just in the homes, the amount of land required to produce that food is about the size of Wales. So that's a significant amount of area of land that's used to grow food that's currently not being used. And if you think that across the world, that's significant. If we reduce the food waste down, we could save 17 million tonnes of CO2 a year, which is the same as taking 1 in every 4 cars off the road. So there's real benefits here. And just to echo what Nikki said, it's not just in the home, it's right down through the supply chain, and it's also on farms as well. We need to tackle food waste in all of those areas.
What do you make of the pig idea?
Well,
that was featured in the VT and something that Nikki is championing.
I think the key thing here is that what we have to do first and foremost is to reduce waste. That's the way you get the biggest benefits. You get the biggest benefits financially and environmentally for all concerned. The second thing you do is to feed people. So if that food is edible and is legal to do so, then we should redistribute as much as we can to feeding people. Then after that, we should think about feeding animals where it's legal to do so. And then only after that do we start thinking about recycling through other technologies like anaerobic digestion and composting. So that's the sort of order of things. First and foremost, though, prevention is king.
And what you guys do is obviously, as we saw, always something which has the climate change in mind and is going to be beneficial as far as you go forward.
And the big idea has a direct link to climate change, because by feeding food that is not fit for human consumption to pigs, we can have a very dramatic impact in reducing the environmental and sort of carbon emissions impact of our food production. At the moment, we're chopping down forests to grow more food, grains and soya to feed our pigs. It's food that humans could eat, so by doing that we increase food prices and we contribute to global hunger, but also we have a massive impact on land use change. So we grow our agricultural frontiers. As I said, we chop down forests, and that has a dramatic impact on carbon emissions, in addition to obviously biodiversity loss, interruption of hydrological cycles, and all sorts of
so
environmental
you're
destruction.
acting locally, but you really are, not to sound cliche, but you really are thinking globally.
Absolutely, absolutely. How we consume food in the West has a direct impact in and on the environment globally.
There's no wastage on the expedition in the Antarctic.
I'm sure there is.
Just wondering if you could pass this on to the retailers and suggest it's something that they could start stocking on their shelves. Did you see me taste earlier that food? It was incredible. But that's what they're eating over in the Antarctic. It'd be nice if I could go down my local supermarket tomorrow and pick up a few of these. It was really tasty.
Yeah. They sell similar things in camping stores.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Do you
for
cover
camping.
camping stores?
Yes.
Can I get a deal? Right. We'll talk about it later. Thanks very much indeed for coming in. A really interesting debate. Yeah, those guys in the Antarctic certainly won't be wasting any of the food that they've been going through. 6,000 calories a day they are burning. We'll check in with those guys again tomorrow. Also, we hear from Renault's head of electric vehicles and ask him, are electric cars going anywhere?
And we learn more about the Ice Broker. That's the custom-built vehicle that's actually allowing Parker and the team to send back those amazing images that we've been seeing from the ice.
I'm going to go and get myself another packet, I think, of that stuff. Remember, willisresilience.com is the website, and keep your tweets coming into us at Willis South Pole. We'll see you in the morning for another show
See
here
you
on
tomorrow.
Willis Resilience TV.
Thank you.